In this episode, we're taking a look at a famous star cluster that proves the saying, stars that are born together shine together. This is a picture in 1,000 words. Welcome to A Picture in 1,000 Words. My name is Mubdi Rahman, and I'm the astronomer who's bringing you through some of the most gorgeous images from space that we're taking a look at right now. And in this episode, we're taking a look at a classic image of the Pleiades. So this is an image of the Pleiades star cluster, and this is a group of stars that have been seen by humans for as long as records have been kept. This image itself is actually a series of images that were taken by the Palomar telescope in Southern California. These images, believe it or not, were taken with film, like you put in a camera and you have to take it out in the dark and you have to develop it in a dark room. That's the kind of film I'm talking about, and that's where this image is taken, or how this image was taken. This series of images were taken between 1986 and 1996. Thankfully now for us, they've been scanned into digital files, and we can now use them take a look at them using computers. The colors that you're seeing here are similar to the colors that your eyes would see. So the blue here is very much like the blue that your eyes would see. You see a little bit of red in some of these stars, that is also red that your eyes would see. And the green that primarily makes up the white, because when you add red, blue, and green that forms white, that's all green that your eyes would see. But the vast majority of everything you're seeing here is blue. So this entire star cluster is about 440 light years away. So that's not super close. It's definitely more distant than our closest of stars that are, a few light years away from us. But it's also not super far. It's not like it's on the other side of the galaxy. It's still well within the Milky Way galaxy, and part of the reason that it looks so bright. And this entire region is just a little under a degree in size. And so just to give you a sense, the full moon would be something like this on this image. And what we're talking about at the distance of 440 light years, we're talking that this entire region is something like 10 light years on an edge. So a fairly large area of sky where you can see a bunch of stars that are fairly close together. Now, when you take a look at some of the brightest of the stars, so things like in here, you can actually see that there's spikiness that's coming out. And in fact, for the even brightest ones, you can actually see these circles that look basically the same around each really bright star. And what this is coming from is that these stars are so bright that the little bits of light that are bouncing around the telescope and bouncing off the mirror and bouncing off the things that are holding up the mirror, that's what we're seeing here. So all of this stuff that all looks almost exactly the same is just coming from all of the light that's bouncing off the telescope because these stars are so bright. So traditionally, classically, people have seen the brightest members of this star cluster. So they've seen about 6 or 7 of these stars that are all kind of close together. And you can see them without any telescope, without any binoculars, just with your naked eye. But something interesting happened the minute you took a telescope and pointed towards it. And it looked like the stars multiplied. So you can start seeing a lot more stars. The first time a telescope was put towards it, Galileo had done this, and he saw something like 36 different stars that he could count. Now we're saying that this cluster has probably about 1,000 different members that are all sort of a part of this same cluster, and that's excluding any stars that just happen to be behind it or in front of it. This is all just 1,000 members or 1,000 different stars that are all together in this group. So the brightest of these stars, again, the ones that you can see without any telescope, they tend to be fairly massive stars. So these are anywhere between a few to 8 times the mass of our sun. And these stars produce most of their light in the ultraviolet. So this is light that's bluer than our eyes can see. But to our eyes, they're also producing a little less light in the blue and much less light in the yellow and green and red. So to the naked eye or to a telescope, this looks super blue. And that's why these stars, even if you just take a look at them on a dark night and compare them to other stars, they would look blue to your eyes. And it's kind of cool to see that. So the key to understanding this star cluster is that we think that the vast majority of the stars here were all born together from the same gas cloud that formed all these stars. So what we're thinking is that all of these stars were born together somewhere between 75 to 150 million years old. That's a long time, and that's enough time for all of the gas that formed these stars and the leftover gas that was there for it to have been blown out all the way. So there should be no gas here that came from the birth of these stars. This is very different from some other young star clusters that we've been taking a look at, such as the Orion Nebula. This is more than enough time for all that gas to be cast out, whereas what we're seeing in things like the Orion Nebula is the gas that formed those stars, or the leftover gas that formed those stars, still in that region. This is a little different. So I said that all the gas that was used to form these stars should have been cast out and be pushed away by all the stars themselves and the light from the stars themselves. So why do we see all of this blue stuff here? It looks like it's gas, and you'd be right. All of this stuff, this haze that you're seeing here and these streaks over here, that stuff is gas and dust as well. But it's actually kind of cool. The story is a little more interesting than that. What's happening is that as these stars, they've had 150 million years, up to 150 million years from when they were born, and they're not staying still. Nothing in the galaxy actually stays still. It's all moving with respect to one another. So all of these stars are actually kind of moving in this direction. And over time, you can actually measure small incremental amounts of movement that are happening. And so we can see that these stars have slowly moved from where they were originally born to where they are now. And so what we think has happened is all of these stars have moved away from their original birth cloud and now have moved into a region where there's been a lot more dust, like a little cloud of dust. And so what's happening in this cloud of dust is the blue light that is coming from each of these stars is bouncing off of every particle of gas and reflecting out in every different direction. So that's what we're seeing, and this is called a reflection nebula because it's just reflecting the light that's coming from the stars themselves. So what's going to happen to these stars as they continue to move through the galaxy together? Well, as we noted, all of these stars are sort of moving in their own direction, but they're also subject to gravity. Things that are in the galaxy as they move together will start to push them in different directions, and they'll start to move all around one another. And all these stars that were compact will have been pushed by these external forces from things like other groups of stars, or they will be pushed by other clouds of gas, and they'll slowly start to lose touch of one another, and they'll start to scatter. And this is just a reminder that even being born together and being in such a close group, forces outside of your own group can send you off on your own course as you grow up. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of A Picture in 1,000 Words. This was a lot of fun taking a look at the Pleiades star cluster. And if you're out in a place where they're up and it's a dark night sky, definitely take a look. They do look blue to the human eye. If you liked this episode, please let us know in the comments. Thumbs up if you did, thumbs down if you didn't, and be sure to let your friends know about A Picture in 1,000 Words. We want to spread the love of the wonderful space images that are coming out on a day-to-day basis. And the other thing that we'd love for you to do is, if you haven't already, please subscribe. It really does help us out a lot. Your fun fact for the week is, since the Pleiades are so bright and they've been seen by nearly every ancient civilization has had folklore around them. The name the Pleiades that we often use today comes from the Greek folklore. And so it actually probably comes from the Greek word plane, meaning to sail. Likely because the Pleiades when they were up, would indicate the start of sailing season. And this would probably predate any of the Greek myths that come around the notion of the Pleiades being the seven divine sisters. So it was all about the sailing and letting people know that, hey, it's time to sail. Until next time.